Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to get started here in just a second with today's training. Just want to turn off some of these scroll bars. I appreciate those of you coming in early on the chat. That's always good. It lets LinkedIn push this out to everybody else saying, hey, we're live. Let's get going. I am going to share my screen 1 second, then I'm going to turn it off. Usually I have it shared ahead of time, but let me just get this guy going. Okay, so just trying to get my ducks in a row so we can dive into today's training. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I prepared a lot of good stuff for you, but I did want to just give you a quick tip for those showed up early and on time, especially in this particular group, right? We have over 150 people registered for today's training. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to make sure you're putting your name and I might say this again, but your contact information, not your contact information, excuse me, your company name and your core competency into the chat. The reason I'm saying this is because I get federal buyers who come into the training every single day. I get people who are influencers out there, for example, at the SBA and the PTAX, et cetera. They're all coming in and watching the training at various points. And so it's great for you to be able to introduce yourself to them by putting your information into the chat. Also, it's a great way to connect with the others who are in the training. When there's 155 people, that's cool for me that we've got a good audience coming in for training. And I like doing that. That's why we do this, right? But it's also a chance for you to network. And I'll talk more about this, but make sure you're engaging. And one of the most important things in engagement is just let people know who you are. Like I just saw Jamie, for example. I'll just look at the last chat I saw is Strategic Alliance Executive, right? Federal and public sector freelance. Actually, Jamie, put in what? What do you sell? Because I won't remember that. And I want to remember what you sell. So, but there I can see Trevor, software development services, right? SDVO. Okay, let me get my screen going where I want it to be so I can get training officially. I'm always giving my team a second to just be able to say that. All right, let's get into the official training. Government contractors ask me all the time, how can I meet federal buyers who make decisions? And that's a question I get asked all the time, right? And it's like getting invited to a popular bar. You need to be attractive. If you're super attractive, you skip the line, right? Otherwise, you just have to wait in line to get into that popular bar. It's just the way it is. The cool thing about government contracting is that attractiveness isn't based on some weird thing. It's based on your skills and your services and your experience. You can constantly keep improving your attractiveness in the federal market. And I'm going to talk about that. When I use attractiveness in my training, don't mistake it for being at a bar and being attractive. I know this is all that, right? But it's really about your skills, your services, and experience. When you keep that in mind, then you're able to really track on how to get in and meet with those federal buyers. So let's talk about how to meet with federal buyers. Again, when you think about how to get into federal agencies, how to get in these doors of federal agencies, it really comes down to three things that I'm going to talk about today. First, you want to be attractive to federal buyers. And again, I'll talk about what that means. The second thing is you want to be concise when you're making that first contact. Don't try to tell them everything. And then the third thing is to be persistent when trying to land a meeting. So today I'm going to cover down on being attractive, being concise, and being persistent in order to get those meetings within federal agencies with federal buyers. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, but before that, I spent 20 years as a small business owner myself in the federal market. Since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. It's why I do this training, is so that I can keep giving you process, the how of what to do in government contracting to be successful. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, the Government Contracting Success Newsletter. We've got over almost 13,000 subscribers in there. We're the largest GovCon newsletter in LinkedIn. and we only put in content that's valuable to you. So for example, our most recent issue just came out over the weekend, and that obviously had the upcoming training for this week of February 12th, but it also had in 3 different, let's call it articles, right, within the newsletter. One was how to do business with the Army Corps of Engineers or Army Contracting Command in Aberdeen Proving Ground. Another is how to do business with Department of Labor. And the third one was how to do business with Department of Education. So the newsletter has a lot of that type of content, constant content around how can you succeed in government contracting. The other thing is I just wanted to again say thank you for those who registered. Over 150 people registered for today's training. And just to put it in perspective, I just let people know about it and register yesterday. So within 24 hours, we got 150 plus people registering for training. I really appreciate that. First and foremost, that's you saying thank you to us by letting us know you're coming or you're interested in that training, right? The other thing is this is really important. The more that I'm able to show government buyers, et cetera, that we do have a strong community and network here, the more I'm able to pull them out of their agencies and ask them to come share information to you. And as I go into 2024, I really want to be able to step up, getting you information from the horse's mouth, not just me teaching you sales, but buyers telling you, hey, here's what we want. Here's what we're looking for from industry. Here's the challenges, et cetera. And when you register for training, you're really making that so much easier. So I appreciate you doing that. If you haven't already registered, today's February 12th. If you're live, we've got training lined up all the rest of the week. So go take a look at it. Somebody will put a link into the chat for me because people are so nice. That tells you how to go register. Okay, let's get started off with how to meet buyers and get meetings with buyers. And the first step is to be attractive to federal buyers. The first step in being attractive to federal buyers, you must have a clear, focused offer. And what I mean by a clear, focused offer is that you need to sell one thing or say you sell one thing that's easy to know. For example, Bain Group, they do Microsoft 365 services, especially in SharePoint. Brave One, they do elevator maintenance services and installation, right? Capital Group, they do additive manufacturing. Trevor, he's on here from ProTech. They do software development, specializing in the AWS stack. When you have one clear thing that you sell, you make it easy for the rest of us to know. You make it easy for people like me and others in this network, this community who want to help you. You make it easy for buyers when they hear it, they go, oh, I know what that is. And so you want to take a lot of things you might think you should sell and narrow it down to one focused offer. Once you're in, then you can sell a lot more. But when you have a clear, focused offer, you make it easy for the buyer. And that's a simple thing to help your company be attractive to that buyer. The second thing about a clear, focused offer is that you need to make it easy. It needs to be so clear that they can say yes, no, or not me, right? And so, for example, I said Trevor with ProTech, they do software development on the AWS stack. So if somebody looks at that, they go, oh yeah, tell us more about what you do with software development on the AWS stack. Or they go, software development, that's not me. And that's the end of it. It's like, okay. And those two, yes and no, are gold and dirt. And in order for you to have a gold mine, you must have dirt and gold, right? The last option is not me. And the idea behind that is if Trevor talks to somebody, they'll go, oh, that's not me, but it's Sally. Let me introduce you to Sally, or go talk to Sally. But either way, they didn't give you a flat no. They said maybe this person. Having a clear, focused offer makes it easy for people to do that. The second part about being attracted to a federal buyer is you need to show them that you care. There's this great line out there that no one cares what you know until they know that you care. No federal buyer cares what you know until they know you care about their mission, what they're doing, what they need. That's pretty simple to do, right? You can read their strategic plans. You can attend industry days. They'll communicate with industry about what's important to them. So you can show that you care by taking the time to do research. That's the very first step of the 7-step process that I teach for federal revenue success, right? Go to govconchamber.com to see the whole diagram. But you want to pay attention to what's important to them before you start talking about what's important to you. And that leads me to the second bullet on the show you care. Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, and I know it might be small in a little box, but somebody will be nice and put it in the chat. Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. He has 7 habits, and that's habit number 5. And it's the same concept around nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. If you take the time to understand somebody, they're going to feel understood, and they're going to feel like you're more attractive as a vendor, as a seller, because you actually took the time to care about them. So that's the second part of being attractive to a federal buyer. And the third thing is to make sure your marketing assets are consistent. The idea behind this is there's 6 marketing assets, and you can watch previous training that I do. I've done a lot of training, probably 30, 40, 50 different trainings on marketing assets, right? So I have a lot on marketing assets, but the idea is to make sure they're consistent. If you're reaching out to try to schedule a meeting, which is kind of the purpose of today's training, before somebody gives you that meeting, they're probably going to check you out. And the way they check you out is to look at your marketing assets. They'll go to the Dynamic Small Business Search tool because that's the #1 market research tool for government buyers. They'll go to your LinkedIn profile. They'll go to your website. They'll go to your capability statement if they see it on DSBS or on your website. Those all need to have kind of this consistent, I don't mean kind of, they need to have a consistent message across the board that says, for Trevor, for example, we do AWS software development on his website, on DSBS, on his capability statement, on LinkedIn, right? So across the board, he'll be communicating it. And that way, when they're checking him out to decide, do I want to have a meeting with them after he just reached out to them to try to schedule one, they're going to look and go, oh, AWS, sure. And it looks pretty consistent. It looks like they actually are an AWS software development firm. Let's meet with them. The pro tip I have here is avoid being controversial. And I don't want to be controversial by going too far into this, but on LinkedIn in particular, be really careful about what you post that is personal information first. The second is stuff that just goes way off. And when I say personal information, by the way, I don't mean me saying something about my kids or whatever. I mean politics, for example. Going down this path, it's a very dangerous slope. And in this particular case, we're in sales. If you want to use LinkedIn for your personal stuff, I'm not here to tell you it's wrong. But what I am telling you is if you want to meet federal buyers, let's just say Coke or Pepsi, right? And you say Coke is the best thing on LinkedIn and Pepsi is horrible or something. Well, if you're trying to reach out and you're reaching out to a person who thinks Pepsi is the bomb, and not only is Coke bad, but people who say, Coke is the best and Pepsi is bad, I don't even want to meet with them. Well, you cut off half the people, right? And so just kind of consider keeping that stuff out. The other reason, way more important than just that, though, is if you start talking about different things, and I unfollow people all the time who I go into their feeds or I get it into my feed, I see their content, but their content is not what I thought I would be following them for. An example is, let's say I'm following somebody related to, and I just happened to see a book on government contracting pricing. Let's say I'm following somebody on government contracting pricing, but they start going off on these other topics that are unrelated, and they really start getting farther and farther away from pricing, farther away from proposals. I begin to say, you know what, I'm not going to follow. You need to be consistent so people see Trevor in this particular case, let's use him as an example, as somebody who's posting stuff about software development and AWS and what you can do in your agency. Take the personal stuff and put it on Facebook and everywhere else. But in LinkedIn, just a suggestion, I'm not here to debate people, consider keeping your content really consistent. All right, let's move on to a second tip is be concise. And so this is really important when you're first reaching out to people. There's 2 ways that I teach people to reach out, right? 2 steps. When you reach out to somebody and you're going to try to schedule a meeting, the first thing you do is call and leave a voicemail. Second thing you do is follow up with an email. And that's pretty much the process. So many of us avoid the phone call because we don't like doing it, whatever. We might get somebody, they might answer, it's scary, right? But you got to make a phone call is the way I teach. Make a phone call, follow up with an email. So I'm going to talk about that. But in both of these, you generally do not get the person, you get the voicemail and you send an email. So you want to be concise. And what I really am driving towards when I say concise is don't tell the other person everything about your company. They don't care. They don't even know who you are. I don't know how to use it any other way, but if you think about dating and I'm in a bar and I see a girl across the way and I walk over and I say, hi, my name's Neil. And then I just keep talking, telling her about my childhood, telling her about my time in the Army, telling her about my dreams for the future. And I never once even stopped to say, oh, do you want to talk? Do you want to say hi back or any of that? And when we send an email or leave a voicemail and we're telling them everything about our business and all these different things, we haven't given them a chance to say hi back, right? Which might infer a willingness to have a conversation. And so you want to be concise in the beginning. In fact, you always want to be concise, but in particular, in the beginning, you want to be concise. So the voicemail script, my guidance for you is, first off, it needs to be 30 seconds. Nothing longer than that, right? The idea is you're just leaving a quick voicemail. No one wants to listen to a long voicemail. And the reality is you're just trying to get a meeting. I'm going to show you a sample voicemail on the next slide. I'll also show you a sample email template on the next slide. And then the other thing, keep in mind about voicemails, I get people make these excuses all the time, but they're just excuses, right? If you're not making phone calls and leaving voicemails, it's because you don't want to make phone calls and leave voicemails. It's because you don't want to pick up the phone and cold call somebody for fear they might answer it. It's not because they don't listen to voicemails anymore. Of course they do. And in the government, some of these organizations are getting so smart where the voicemail comes in, it just sends it over as a message. The reason you want to leave a voicemail is it is a marketing engagement or a marketing touch. And really, you need to touch, marketing touch a target or a lead like 30, 60, 70 times before it finally sinks in that, oh, hey, I've seen that. Even for me, right? I get people trying to reach out to me and they followed up 4 or 5 times and I haven't got back, Sean. But I want to get back. I'm just busy. Don't sit there and take me not getting back as an answer, right? It just means you need to keep following up. And a voicemail is just one way to engage that lead that you're trying to get a meeting with. The second thing is your email template. When you send an email trying to get a meeting, go directly to the ask. The ask is, what do you want, right? What you want is a meeting. Don't cover that with a bunch of words talking about your company and we've won these awards. Who cares, right? Right now, you're just trying to get a meeting and you're trying to get that yes or no. If you have a clear, focused offer, they're going to say yes, no, or maybe Sally, right? Any one of those 3 answers is fine. When you send too many words, sometimes you don't get any of those answers because it's too hard to get to the answer. They're like, oh, I'll come back and read that email later. All right. And then last thing about email templates, don't tell them everything, right? That idea of informing them. I feel like I need to inform them who we are, really help them understand whether they want to meet with us. No, first off, they're not going to read it. Second off, if they did, you're just giving them reasons not to meet with you. You're giving them too much information. Last thing I want to just talk about on being concise when you make that first contact is I want to talk about LinkedIn for a couple of reasons. First off, I hear about people connecting with people on LinkedIn a lot, right? I just reach out, I made a connection, and I bounced around on this. I actually am going to begin to modify some of my training. I recommend you stop doing connections, and here's when. See that bottom bullet? It says, no need to connect if you're not posting. The whole point of connecting with somebody is so that they can see your content. If you don't create content, if you are not creating content on a weekly basis, let's say you're sharing something about elevator services or about cybersecurity, whatever your clear focused offer is, if you're not sharing information out there on LinkedIn that would be valuable to the other person, there's no reason to connect. They don't need to see your feed. If all you're doing is reposting everybody else's stuff, or you're just liking things, then you're just engaging out there. But the reason for a connection, the only real reason for a connection is so that this person can see the content that you post. It gets put on their feed. Another way that can happen is if this person chooses to follow you. And so if you're not making content, I recommend nowadays don't even bother connecting, because what you want to do is build this relationship. And so really, I'm coming from the bottom up, but the idea is you want to engage and follow, right? Engage means getting out there, clicking thumbs up, or putting a comment into their post. That is a huge one. I see the government buyers putting stuff all the time on LinkedIn, and people do all these thumbs up, but no one takes the time to put a comment on. But if you're doing zero trust architecture and somebody from the government is putting out something, or even somebody from industry is putting out something about zero trust or cybersecurity of the future or new strategy, you can get in there and read it and go, this is really fascinating. I'm really interested in how it's going to go this direction. You're putting a comment in that is really trying to engage conversation around the other person's post. Primarily, you want to target your federal buyers that you're trying to build relationships with. So instead of just trying to connect with them, try to find those that are doing content and engage with them. And the last one is follow, right? So when you see that they're creating content or when you want them to see who you are, follow. Always make sure you engage first. This is my opinion. Engage first for a few weeks, right? Unless you're in some sort of big hurry, just engage for a few weeks. And then after you've had a chance to be able to engage in their content, they will see who you are. They'll see, we all look at, unless you're getting hundreds of thumbs up, we all go see who's giving us a thumbs up, right? And if you comment, absolutely the person who posted, that federal buyer perhaps, they're going to see your comment. They're going to appreciate that you put a comment in as long as it's relevant and helpful in there, right? And so after you've done that for a little bit, you're on their radar, then hit the follow button, which is telling that person, hey, Neil just clicked follow and is following your content. So now it's farther along. This is all kind of warming up a federal buyer before you reach out to them to try to schedule a meeting, et cetera. So these are things you can do. But the idea is if you are going to send a LinkedIn connection request, I don't even bother putting a message. I was going to give you a template, but I actually recommend you just, if you're engaged and then follow and you still want to connect, just connect after you've done it. I've stopped sending personal messages because I know they're engaged. And when I look at the people who are connecting with me, as long as I see they're in my world, I'll make a connection that I don't need a big, heavy message from them, because nowadays, what are they really going to say? Hey, Neil, I love your stuff. I'd love to connect. Well, that was kind of what they said when they just sent the request, right? I'm not here to debate that. Last thing I just want to say is don't overvalue connections you make with the government buyers. Those guys, a lot of times, one of two things can happen. They'll accept it or they won't. But it's not like when they accept it, they go, oh my gosh, there's Neil, I'm going to buy from him, right? Don't put a lot of value or place a lot of value on, hey, boss, I just connected with 5 federal buyers. That's really good stuff. I'm like, it just means you're LinkedIn connected. It doesn't mean you actually had a meeting. Meetings are where you start putting a lot of value on it. So let me give you a couple of templates really quick. So this is just ones I might use, and I threw them together fairly fast, but my voicemail script is something like this. Frankly, this could be with a federal buyer or a teammate. Hi, John. My name is Neil McDonald with ABC Company. I support federal agencies like you and hope to have a quick intro call. Our focus is Microsoft 365, and I wanted to see if there might be areas we can team up on together. If convenient, I'm free next Tuesday or Thursday at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. Again, this is Neil McDonald with ABC Company. My phone number is 703-555-1212. Hope you have a great day. That's it. It's the same voicemail script. I'm a little stumbling on it because that's like the second time I've read it. But if I was using that script to reach out to 100 people to set meetings up, then I would be practicing that 30 or 40 times. So I've got it on a roll, right? I'd make the font like, 32 font. So it's very easy for me to read. But the important thing to remember is I'm saying who I am and who I'm with right up front. Then I'm saying right out of the gate, I'm trying to give a little credibility or perspective and say, hey, I support federal agencies. Oh, they might be a government contractor, right? And I hope to have a quick intro call. I went straight to the ask. That's what I'm calling you for. And then the next line here, our focus is Microsoft 365. I'm saying what we do, and I'm trying to see if we can team up. I'm using these words, right? Can we team up together? So that is implying to whoever's, really paying attention that this is where my swim lane is, and I want to see if we can have a conversation to see if it makes sense. And then I'm giving them options. Always give 2 options, Tuesday or Thursday, so 2 different days at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. So I'm giving them 2 different options of days and then 2 different options of times to try to schedule a meeting. Don't say, hey, let's get together and see if we can schedule a call. Give them options right then and there. And it doesn't have to be this week. It could be next week or the week after, and you still can keep those times. The email template is basically the same thing, except for it's broken up a little differently. You see how I've got the email template broken up into these short sentences. Email should be like social media, very short to read. My second line is actually a little bit long there, but if it's 12-point font, it actually is like a half of a page coming across, so it's fine. But here in the email template, I say, hi, John, I support federal agencies like you and hope to have a quick intro call. I went straight for the ask, just immediately. I'm not trying to soft toe around this or soft shoe around it, right? I'm trying to go right in and say, are you like me that you're willing to talk to me? If you are, great, let's meet. If not, okay, fine. I need dirt in order to get gold. So I support federal agencies like you and hope to have a quick intro call. Our focus is Microsoft 365. I wanted to see if we could team up, right? Same line. If convenient, I'm free next Tuesday or Thursday Let me know if either works for you, right? And I might have added one more line. Let me know if either works for you, right? And then regards, Neil. Just really clear, very fast. I'm not explaining any more about my company. If I haven't won you over or lost you with Microsoft 365, then I'm just going to move on. I'm looking for, and I'll talk about this in a minute, maybe right here. I'll talk about this last one, right? Is be persistent when trying to land these meetings. If I just start at the bottom for a second where it says understand the bell curve, you got to keep in mind when you reach out to people, you're not trying to get everybody to schedule a meeting with you. This bell curve represents 100 people you reach out to. The late majority and laggards represent 50%, 50 people. Those people will not meet with you at all. They might not even respond, right? Totally cool. That's dirt. The early majority is not going to meet with you. So now that's another 34%. So now we got 84% of the people will not meet with you and maybe won't even get back to you. The early majority doesn't want to meet with you unless they're introduced to you by somebody else. For example, I got a customer last week who asked to use another person's name. They said, no, it'd be better if I introduce you to my colleague. This is a government buyer who said this, which is so nice. She said, let me make the introduction so that way they're sure to take the email and schedule a meeting with you. And so that early majority people, they'll meet with you. They just want an introduction. So that means 16% innovators and early adopters, those are the ones you're going to meet with. So when you think about sending messages out, you need to do enough volume, and then you need to be patient enough to understand not everybody is going to say yes. Only 16% will represent gold. The other 84% will basically be dirt, but still you own a gold mine, right? All right, so I don't have a lot of time to talk about it right now, but one of the things about being persistent when you're trying to land meetings is don't give up, right? Don't just send 1 or 2 or 3 emails. You really want to follow through. And so one of the bullets I didn't touch on, but I was going to, is how to find buyers. And there's 22 different ways that I teach you how to find buyers. And I have a whole separate training, but I'm going to put an article in the newsletter. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. I'm going to put an article in the newsletter that talks about the 22 different ways, and it'll include a PDF handout of those 22 different ways. But these are 22 different ways of finding buyers. And if you can use them, perhaps those are 22 different people who can make introductions for you so that you can touch on the early majority as well. The part I really wanted to focus on is the 30-day sales follow-up. I have a whole training on this and a handout. Again, I'll do another article really soon on the 30-day follow-up. But here's what I wanted to say about 30-day follow-up process as it relates to being persistent when you're trying to land a meeting. I talk to people, I say, how have you been reaching out to them, following up? Yeah, we did a lot, and then we kind of petered off. Okay, how much? Well, I think we did it twice 1 week, and then we followed up the next 2 weeks, and then we kind of gave up. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a lot. If all you do is 1, 3, or 4 sounds like a lot. What you need to do is to reach out 30 or 60 times. Unless for some reason you're reaching out to people in the beginning that you don't really want to talk to, then you should be reaching out to people you do want to talk to. So it's worth following up 30 or 40 times. Just because they haven't got back to you does not mean the answer is no. Don't say no for them. Just assume the answer is always yes, I want to meet with you. I just haven't responded to your email. There has been so many cases where buyers have told customers of mine, oh my God, thanks for following up. I've just been busy doing this or that, but I really wanted to just touch base, have that intro call. So be persistent. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter so you can get those 2 handouts. I'll put them in there so it's easy, it's free, but they're really great because you have them on the wall and you understand how to be persistent by following a process, a 30-day process for following up on somebody. Okay, so here's what I want you to remember coming out of today's training, in particular the 3 steps, right? The 3 steps to getting more meetings with federal buyers, to get in there and meet with federal buyers, is first, be attractive, and that's about your marketing assets. The second thing is be concise. You just try to land the meeting, not inform them about everything about your company. So be concise. And the third one is be persistent. Don't think that the answer is no. Don't say no for them. Just keep following up. You will get those meetings. When you identify the right buyers and you follow up, those meetings will come to you. Hey, if you're interested in working with us, we have a BD Accelerator workshop. Happy to talk to you about that. You can learn more on our Government Contractor, govconchamber.com workshop page. You can see the link right here. Somebody will put it in the chat. But as you go through all of this and you're trying to get meetings with federal buyers, just remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.